All right, welcome to Fresh Set of Downs. Bruce Badgley, my man Daryl Daniel, and Bill Miller, head coach of the Northern Polar Bears. One of my favorite team names, and actually the purple and white, I think are really. I don't know of many other teams that have the purple and white. Bill, how about you?
Actually, the school right next door to us is purple and white and
Really?
gold, Boiling Springs.
Okay.
They're having a great year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
are.
Bowling Springs is having a great year.
They are having a good year. So, yeah, you're 4-0. I kind of felt bad because I asked you about the interview, before you were ready to play or whatever like that. And then I was hoping I wasn't going to jinx you by asking you
Yeah.
for an interview before the game. But, you ended up pulling it out. And, talk a little bit about the team this season.
Well, we thought we'd have a pretty good team this year. We have a lot of kids back from the previous years, especially up front on the offensive line. I think we lost one starter, two starters on the offensive line if you count the tight ends. So we felt like we had enough of a nucleus back, and of course we have our quarterback back, and most of our receivers. Quite a few receivers who got time. So, we felt like experience-wise we should be okay. And we had revamped some of our non-league in the beginning of the year, where we knew we were going down to 4A this year, so we tried to load it up with some 5As in the beginning of the year. And of course, with the pandemic, we lost 4 5A contests,
Right.
which of course there's no guarantee the outcome, but we at least thought that if we had a good start,
Right.
we thought if we had a good start, we'd be able to carry some of that momentum into qualifying for districts, and we lost them all. And when the mid-pen said September 25th would be your first game, we realized at that point that it was quite possible that we could go undefeated and possibly miss the district playoffs. And through nobody's fault. I mean, it's just
Right.
The system is what it is. But we tried to wrap, like I told the gentleman today, we tried to wrap our heads around that as early as we could, so that we wouldn't get to a place where we would be undefeated possibly and then feel sorry for ourselves. We tried to wrap our heads around it as early as we could. Just like wrapping our heads around the fact that this whole season could end tomorrow,
Right.
because of the situation everybody's in. So our mantra this year is the here and now. I mean, we're focused on the here and now. We can't worry about what has happened. Can't worry about what might happen. We're here now, and that's my pregame speech every night, every Friday night is the here and now. We're here now. Let's play. So.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, because again, when kids start knowing that may be the outcome, sometimes it determines or it dictates or it changes how kids play. But I think the biggest thing, and from hearing what you're saying, the message you got to pass on to these kids is, no matter what, just think we were this close to not having a season. So we have a season. Let's take advantage of the season. Every single opportunity you have to play the game. Because when I'm training, especially when I'm working with seniors, I told those guys, this may be your last opportunity to play this game. So don't take it for granted, because as you and I both know, football is a game that teaches you more than just about football. It's about life. It's about discipline, about organization, about working with others. So I think that's the biggest thing. If you can get these guys, which it sounds like you're doing, just to stay focused on the task at hand. Don't care about what happens down the road. Every single week, go out there and let's leave it on the field and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, that just about sums it up. About sums it up.
Coach, you've really got a great following there. I mean, they're in Northern. One of the interesting things that I saw for you guys is, wow, you've been kind of the road warriors this year. I mean, I think this week's only your second home game of the season coming up. And then I saw this thing where, you're putting your games in a drive-in theater so that everybody can watch them. So tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about? That's cool.
Well, we've actually had a couple of what they're calling watch parties. I think the VFW or the Legion here has done it. There's a place called Big Bottoms Brewery. Used to be a pizza shop out on 15. they've shown the games outdoors on a big screen for people to go and enjoy a meal and watch. And you're right. It was something we were concerned about because we do generally have a very good following, and we do generally get quite a few fans at visiting games and when we go away. And we were concerned about that as well. So, but this was kind of our boosters kind of started the ball rolling here, talking to the drive-in, the local drive-in, about this possibility. And I stayed out of it pretty much. I was just like, oh, go ahead. I got enough to worry about. But they were able to pull it off for this week. So this week's game is going to be played on a drive-in screen, just like a movie.
Wow,
that's really cool.
That's pretty cool. Daryl, anything else for the coach from you?
One more thing. Something we talked to Coach Cal about last week. In the summer, I know it's tough trying to keep the kids together and do the training and stuff because of some of the guidelines. You weren't allowed to have kids in the facility. How are the guys able to stay on top of their conditioning, the lifting, the training? I mean, do you have great senior leadership where the guys are able to stay together? How are guys able to stay focused to be able to get to this point where you're 4-0?
Yeah, I think my seniors did a great job as far as keeping the kids organized. Once we were able to gather in groups, and the guy that runs my conditioning, my off-season conditioning, he's a Penn State grad, was a walk-on at Penn State, and he's actually got his doctorate in physical therapy. So he was able to organize some small sessions at a local park. We couldn't use the school facilities yet. And before that, we were just doing stuff on Zoom. I mean, he was just running conditioning things through Zoom, and we had team meetings through Zoom and tried to get all of our installation out of the way as early as we could, so that when we did get to a point where we would start, at least that learning part hopefully would have been out of the way. But we still had to teach it on the field. But the seniors did a nice job of staying organized and focused on what they were doing. And as soon as they were able to get together, man, they were together all the time.
Right, and that's what Bruce and I talked about week one. The teams that did things like that, where they had great senior leadership and did the Zoom calls, you see now, those are the teams that are 4-0. Those are the teams that are leading the charge because, again, if you waited, if you had any outside source, any training you guys are doing, everybody's just waiting for the season to start, those teams are way, way behind. So that's a credit to you and your staff.
No, thank you. Yeah, I know there were a lot of people that picked up on it. I know the guys here at Penn Live did a little story on it when they heard we were doing it. And then next thing you know, I mean, a lot of people were doing it. So, at least a way to stay in touch with the players. The big thing was the first couple of Zooms was just a way to say, hey, let's connect, let's reconnect. Because, I mean, we hadn't seen kids since March. Right. So, and we started in May. We just stuck with our spring schedule. Our spring schedule called for us to start May 11th. So May 11th, we had our first Zoom. And then we sort of stayed on the same schedule. It just wasn't a physical practice until we could. And by the time June 29th came around, our attendance was through the roof. I mean, we had kids showing up in numbers, and our numbers have actually gone up. Last year, I know, Bruce, you remember you covered our Governor Mifflin game, and we had barely 30 kids in uniform, and we've been carrying high 40s this year, even through the pandemic. So we're pretty happy about that.
Well, you have Susquehanna Township this week. I mean, what do you expect from those guys?
Speed, and more speed, man. I mean, just they're the kind of team, and they're so well coached. Joe does such a great job that, they're not going to continue to play. They're playing subpar right now, but they're not going to continue that. And you just know it's going to happen. So we're talking about things like ball security and limiting our mistakes, limiting negative plays, not giving them, opportunities, and just trying to keep the game in front of us so that we can, make the plays we got to make.
Right, and that's the biggest thing. Joe Eden being a good friend of mine, like I know, like you said, there's a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, but I'm sure, the game plan that you guys have, like the biggest thing you said, just keeping guys in front of you, breaking down, being in position, that will help, offset some of that speed, which I'm sure you guys have been talking all week.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Coach, I tell you what, we got to know one another a little bit more here this summer, and we've stayed in touch. And Bill Miller, one of the good guys in this game there, and I'm wishing you all the luck in the world. I mean, I'm fortunate enough where I can do the scoreboard watching of these other teams that you're up against, in 4A, which is going to be. It's amazing, how tight it is. I know why you're concerned, and but there's going to be a lot that's going to shake out this week. I
Oh, yeah.
mean, so between yourself and obviously all you can worry about is what you can worry about, which is what in front of you, which is Susquehanna Township. But in 4A, boy, there's going to be a lot of determination, I think, on where it's going to end up, and on a personal level, I wish you all the luck in the world, my friend, and we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be kind of crazy down the stretch.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. It's going to be fun. The only thing I would question if I had a chance to talk to the District 3 people is I understand why some of the classes had to do the cutoff on the 26th because they start on the 30th. I get that. But 3 of the classes don't.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why 3 of those classes couldn't include the game after this week, because that's a normal district thing. I mean,
Right,
you
a
play
normal
Friday,
district
you
game
out
for
over the
you.
weekend. Yeah.
Right.
So that was my last thing I said to the boys tonight. I said, we don't have to worry about being in district playoffs. We're in it right now. We're in it right
Absolutely.
now.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bill, thanks a lot. I wish you all the luck in the world. I appreciate you taking time out, and we'll look forward to a good result from you this week. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Daryl.
Thanks
All right,
a
you guys-
lot. All
you have a
right.
good one.
Very nice speaking
All
with
right.
you, sir. Take care now. Bye
You
now.
bet. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. At least we haven't had any trouble like when the guests have been leaving. I'm
Yeah.
I was always worried that they're gonna, we get them in on time and then the exit there. But I was fortunate enough to get to know Bill and really that Northern program here a bit, this summer, and got to know the passion that those people have for their football over there. And, he's really, and we'll get into it a little bit more when we, look at the ranking or the power rankings, but that 4A, I mean, is just full of landmines.
Yeah, it is.
So anyway, well, thanks for Bill to joining us. Let's switch over next to some of our recaps from last week. And probably, I'll be honest with you, one of the more interesting results last week to me was not that Middletown won, but that they won 20-16. I mean, Boiling Springs really gave them a tussle.
Yeah, and we talked about that. We thought last week would be a week that teams would start separating themselves. And I mean, Boiling Springs had a shot there at the end, but Middletown, as they always do, they held them off.
And I was at Warwick, and Solanco. Solanco coming off, consecutive wins against the likes of Cocalico and Manheim Central. And now, Warwick comes calling. Boy, I tell you what, the one thing that I found out in watching these guys in person, Warwick is the real deal. Colton Miller had 5 touchdowns. Caleb Schmitz, McCracken looking, solid in the pocket. That defense looking really strong. Mr. Rucci up front there really dominating. Man, those guys are going to be a tough out.
Yeah, they are. But again, we knew that coming into the season. They're ranked number 1 for a reason, and I mean they're going to be loaded. So I mean these playoffs with only being 4 teams, their first game in that playoff, they're going to have to be ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. And, a team that was really rocking and rolling last week was East Pennsboro. Hand Waynesboro, their first loss of the year. East Pennsboro, showing that they've got some giddy up in their step.
Right. I mean, they each week they've been getting closer and closer to showing that form they ended with last year, and that was a big win over Waynesboro. So, like I said, it's starting to separate that 4 and 5A a little bit right there.
Yeah, East Pennsboro's only loss was to Northern week 1. Berks Catholic, Wow. 56-28 over Exeter Township. I think a statement win for BC this year. What do you think?
Absolutely. They put up 35 points in the second half and held Exeter to 0. So, I mean, they look good. They got a big game this week, and then we know what's next. So I think that game will tell a lot. It'll, in 2 weeks. But again, I know they don't look ahead, so they're worrying about next week. Coach does a great job of keeping those guys focused. So they know what's in front of them. They got to get through this week and the next week. So I mean, they're going to be war ready. They're very deep. That's one thing. They're very, very, very deep. So they can rotate a lot of guys in there. So it's going to be interesting to see, once hopefully they stay focused this week, get this W this week, and then see what happens next week.
And Bishop McDevitt, I mean, taking it to Cumberland Valley, 45-10.
Yeah, well, Cumberland Valley, they made some changes with the offense. They're out of that wing T system now. They got a new coach, a lot of new things going on there. So, they got to find those pieces. They got to find quarterbacks that can make the throws that the coach wants to do in order to run that offense. But Bishop McDevitt, they're on a mission after last year, having the game, and then LS came back, roaring back and taking that game from them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
And Manheim Township, maybe a little bit too little too late, but a nice win, 49-7 over Hempfield.
Yeah, they got rolling offensively. They made a lot of good plays on defense. Anthony Ivy beat the coverage deep like 3 or 4 times on 3rd and long. I mean, they just took shots and he just made big plays. So, like you said, it's a little bit too, but they still can be spoilers though. That's what they can do down the stretch here.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. Obviously, we're glad that we're playing football, but we've seen enough of these seasons to know that certain teams, and you talk about the fact that you've mentioned it many times, sometimes it's 6 or 7 games before a team really gets their chemistry and, creates that personality and defines themselves. Where this year, I mean, all they have are 6 or 7 games. So, there's really no opportunity for a team to kind of gel and then move forward this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because, again, like we talked about, Manheim Township returned 1 starter. They had a lot of new first-time starters. Again, they had played the year before, but they had a lot of first-time starters. So, I know they don't do this, but we can talk about it because this is what our job is. But next year, they're going to be a team to deal with. Like, they're going to be loaded next year. So next year, we go from saying probably return 1 starter to probably 20-something. So, again, that's not how they're looking at it. They're going to continue to fight through the season because anything can happen in 6A. I think this week they'll try to get another W and just kind of see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's just the philosophy of most every team right now. So, all right, well, we're gonna try and do the proverbial share screen function here, and boom, can you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm doing good with this. Right. Mr. Non-tech savvy here, but gosh, I really love this. I think, as we've gone through this over the years, this is always, my favorite segment of the show is to kind of go down through the power rankings, and
right, absolutely.
And our first look at it here, and clearly, in single A, DeLone and Steel High are, kind of on a collision course. In single A, but DeLone in your Catholic play this week, quite honestly, I think that's for just bragging rights, because I think both teams have pretty much solidified, their spots and, moving on to, a district championship game, regardless of what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but again, DeLone would probably love to get that win because that helped them as far as momentum. But it's going to be a good, tough test of them to getting them ready for Steel High.
Yeah, clearly, I think it's definitely normally, I'll be honest with you. Normally, we just kind of look at the single A game, I tell you what, that's going to be one dynamite game and could have far-reaching effects in the overall PIAA tournament.
Right, and then also you got to look at it this way: since there's no games at Hershey, like they're also playing for home field advantage too.
Right.
So we got to remember that part, because whereas that number one seed is going to have the home field advantage. So
good point. Yeah, I'm sure.
Like I said, this is spread out here. Yeah. I'm
sure DeLone doesn't want to go to Steel High. That's for sure. So playing for home field advantage for that championship game. That's a great point there, partner. And going down to AAA, it looks like, AAA is going to have to go through Wyomissing. What do you think?
Yeah, and having that home field advantage is going to be huge. Playing on Saturday, that's a huge advantage. Playing on grass, that's a huge advantage. So, they're excited about it. They understand what's in front of them, but they're going to take it week by week.
Coach Wolfram's told me, on more than one occasion, that that's the single biggest home field advantage, maybe in District 3, is that, that they got to play on Saturday, because nobody wants to play on Saturday.
No,
but I guess the race there is for, the final playoff spot. My gosh, you've got, 3 teams there with 2 losses, that, depending on how it all falls out, still with the 4 playoff spots, I'd say, there's definitely at least 1 or 2 slots still maybe up for grabs there, going into 3A. And then, just looking at the 4A, we could probably spend a whole show just talking about 4A and the different scenarios that could play out here. And, McDevitt, they look pretty solid, but do you want to play Lampeter Strasburg on their home field? I mean,
no, because that's what it looks like. Because Lampeter Strasburg is going to have to play Elko, and they're going to have to play Cocalico, and so I mean, a lot of things will get sorted out. So Bishop McDevitt, they're in a good position because they get to sit back. If they go through the rest and they get to sit back, and these teams play each other, they might end up with a number 1 seed. That's what they're hoping for. But I think Lampeter Strasburg understands. I talk to those guys often. Sean McTaggart is a great leader. They understand fully. Coach Mannion is, got those guys rocking and rolling. So I think they fully understand what's in front of them. They take no one for granted every single week.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's an absolute shame that, we aren't taking our full complement of teams this year in 4A, because just look at the star power of those top 8 teams.
Right.
Berks Catholic, Conrad Weiser, Cocalico, Bishop McDevitt, LS, Elko. I mean, wow. And but like I said, it's playoff time now. Each team's got it. They're not playing against, each one of the top 8, but all of them. It's all playoff football starting right now. That's for sure.
Right.
And, Berks Catholic made a big jump to 7, but I just don't see that their power ranking, even if they win their last 2 games, is going to get them anywhere remotely close to the top 4. And look at, what have we got? Like one, I don't know. Between Cocalico, Northern York, and Conrad Weiser, that's just crazy close. And the bad thing is, I don't know if it's a bad thing, but a lot's going to be determined by the teams that they've played on how they do, not necessarily that they're going to win, but it's the teams that they played, how they're going to do. And
right, because if Berks Catholic can come away with 2 wins, their opponent winning percentage is way up. So that'll get them in, because if you look at the teams above them, their schedule is way tougher. So if they can win the next 2 and a couple of those other 2 teams above them lose, they'll be in with 2 losses possibly.
They could. That means that they'd have to beat Governor Mifflin at Governor
Mifflin.
Correct.
But
that's what's fun about what we can do, is we can look ahead.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, like I said, we could spend a whole show on 4A and in 5A. Boy, it's just neck and neck. It's neck and neck between Mifflin and Warwick for that
Right.
number one spot. You gotta believe that each one of those teams now is just tasting the fact that they can have home field advantage throughout. That's such an enormous
Advantage.
race there between those two. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the other teams, but I think Governor Mifflin and Warwick are definitely heading on a collision course.
And New Oxford. I mean, nobody's talking about them, but they've
Yeah.
had a fine season so far. And when I went over and did the Gettysburg York Suburban game Saturday night over there in York Adams area, that's the team that everybody was talking about on the field to look out
Right.
for was New Oxford. So, just like, sometimes you listen to the people in the know, and they said that that's a pretty good ball club over there. But wow, here's, a bad thing is that between Mechanicsburg and Hershey, there's going to be an odd man out likely,
Right.
in that scenario. And both teams have just had really wonderful seasons so far. What do you think?
Absolutely. And like I said, it's just these next few weeks, 2 weeks, are just the playoffs start this Friday.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And so now let's talk about the soap opera that is 6A, which is Harrisburg trying to schedule anybody and everybody on any day at any time to try and get enough points to make the playoffs, and Wilson following suit, trying to up their power ranking by trying to get a midweek game as well. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's awesome. So it looks like Wilson and Harrisburg need to play, but I mean, this 6A is there's going to be a lot of banging going on because a lot of these teams play each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
I tell you what, it is, I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out on whether Harrisburg can get that fourth game to qualify. I mean, their power ranking now, if they got a fourth game, is likely to vault them to the number one seed.
Right.
That's just crazy for somebody who wasn't even playing football, 3 weeks ago to vault all the way to the number one seed. I mean, they're at 0.812 for a power ranking, and if they get one more game and win, it isn't going to drop that significantly.
Right.
So, Wilson, obviously, I mean, they're in panic mode, or at least it seemed like they are in panic mode trying to get a midweek game just to get their power ranking up. I don't know how they would surpass, either Central York and William Penn, but those two would play one another, still have to play one another.
Correct.
So I'm sure with that loss, they would drop out. So, boy, there's a lot to be decided left in 6A, man. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. And then look, man, Township is right there too. So, like I said, it's not over at all. These next 2 weeks are going to be huge.
And look, and just like, we've talked about with every coach, I mean, you just absolutely don't know what's going to happen. I saw the first playoff forfeit. Now, it was in, I think, like volleyball or something like that, where a championship game got canceled because of COVID, and there was a forfeit, and it just went right over to the other team. So that's the other saga that we've not even – nobody, I don't think, wants to go there, but it's just kind of looming out there for, like, what happens in the postseason. It was funny. I was talking to Dave Micah today, and we were making our plans for Hershey, and that I found out from Dave that they're having the six state championship games, 3 on Friday and 3 on Saturday. And I'm going, oh man, I better start doing some track work at the gym if
Oh
I
God, yeah.
gotta do 3 games on
Right.
consecutive days, man. That's gonna be
Right.
interesting. So another great look at power rankings. So let's take a look at some of the good games that we've got this week. I think a game that's going to go a long way in determining that 4A bracket is Cocalico going to Warwick. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, and that's going to be tough because again, that puts Warwick in a really tough position. I mean, Cocalico. I'm sorry. So I see Cocalico. I mean, Warwick continue to roll, and I mean that's going to put Cocalico in a tough situation. It's going to be if they lose that game, it's going to be hard to make that playoff. And then I think they still have LS. I think.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be it's brutal. Susquehanna Township. We were talking earlier. They're playing at Northern York. Susquehanna Township looking for their first win of the year. Northern York undefeated, but you could hear the angst in Coach Miller's voice about playing Susquehanna Township. What do you think about that? You know that team very well.
Well, yeah, they also understand, and like we also talked about, he understands what they're up against, so they can't afford a loss. So those guys, I think they're going to be focused and ready to play. You know, Joe Heaton does a great job with that team. Like I said, they're very athletic, a lot of speed, but Northern they got to go out there and play lights out in order to be able to make this playoff, and I think those guys will be ready to go.
Yeah, I do too. I think Northern will be ready. One of the things it's pretty rare, and you know this being around coaches, most of them are generally downplay their teams. Oh, well, we might be good. Da, 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 da. In talking with Bill Miller this summer, and even now, I think you got a sense that he has a lot of confidence in this group of guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that translates out onto the field. I think that they play with a lot of confidence, and I think that they're, going to do well, especially at home. And Delone and York Catholic going at it. I mean, that's going to be crazy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's going to be the last 3 years. That game has been huge. Sometimes it's lopsided. Well, you expect it to be a little bit closer, and it ends up being lopsided. So it'd be interesting. Like you said, that game I think won't hurt either team, but it will also help because a loss may lose home field advantage. But both of these teams probably should still make the playoffs.
Yeah, clearly. Columbia. I mean, your buddies there still only with one loss. Boy, they're going to have to go into the frying pan there to play at Elko this week. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, they need that. They need that one bad. Elko is rolling. The last couple of years, Elko's looked very good. So Elko understands, and they see what's in front of them too. Same thing. They're going to have to almost go undefeated to make the playoffs. And Columbia needs this win big, and that'll give them a lot of points with them being a double-A team.
Right. Gettysburg is at New Oxford. Gettysburg's only loss was to York Suburban. I tell you what, that was a team that I was very impressed with last week, York Suburban. I mean, talented group of guys, solid quarterback play, slung it all over the yard. They got a sophomore receiver, Kenny Jackson or Johnson, that is going to be something. I mean, he was a playmaker. But they're going into New Oxford, and I'll be honest, like I said, New Oxford was the team that everybody on that field to a person said to keep an eye out for. And so what do you think about that one?
Well, they started gaining traction last year. They did a great job. They got into the playoffs last year. So, I think that game is going to be tough. So if New Oxford comes out on top, again, these teams that are 4-0 or undefeated, they know what they have to do. So they'll be ready to rock and roll.
And, I'll be honest with you, it was hard to come up with a game for the Berks League. But one that I think the most intriguing game in District 3 this week is Hollidaysburg comes all the way over to play Exeter this week. And, that's something that really hasn't been happening much in high school football this year, is teams really traveling.
Right.
So, a team from really the center part of the state coming all the way over to play Exeter. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that is a hike, but like we talked about before, making that long drive, what is that? Almost 2 hours or
Oh, it's
something like
longer
that.
than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long drive.
Hollidaysburg's almost like Altoona. And I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
3 hours.
Right. So that's gonna be um, very, 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 very good. So Exeter, they're on a slide a little bit, but it'd be nice to see them make some changes and then get back on the winning side.
Yeah, I would like to see that too. A lot of look, I've been on some of them trips. When I played in high school, we always took a special trip where it was like a 3-hour game, and then would stay over and went to a
Right.
college football game like the next Saturday morning. So it was kind of like an
Yeah.
overnight trip with the band and everything. I don't know if that's what Hollidaysburg's doing, but usually those trips are a lot of fun. And like you said,
Right, right, right.
if they're just going out and back, man, that's a grind. But if they're kind of making
Yeah.
a weekend of it, let's just say maybe going down to Philadelphia or whatever like that.
Right.
But I guess I would find it hard to believe because of all the COVID stuff that they would do anything other than to go out and back this year. But I like Exeter in that game. I think that's going to be hard road to hoe if you're going out and back from Hollidaysburg just for a game that day. So
Right. Absolutely.
but anyway, what's crazy is we're really only 1 week away from the end of the regular season before we start going into the district playoffs. I mean, how crazy is that? It doesn't even feel like it.
Yeah. This whole year has been different, which everybody understands. But I mean, it's going to be here. It'd be interesting to see kind of what teams are going to be able to step up in this shortened season and who's going to be able to get it done. Because at the end of the day, the game is still the same. You're still playing football. So who's going to be stepping up, ready to play?
I like that. I like the game is still the same, and you're exactly right. I like those words. So, next week we'll be back. Next Wednesday is when we tape, and we'll upload it on Thursday morning there. And there's going to be a lot. Basically, the playoffs are starting this week. I mean, with all of these teams and the power rankings and that. The one thing that I've been doing a show with the guy out in the WPIAL. One of the things that they're doing is they're doing their playoffs very similar to how the NCAA does, and like they actually have a committee that has final say over the teams that make it, rather than on power rankings. What do you think about an approach like that for District 3?
Yeah, see, that still can be dicey though. At least here, there's a formula and there's numbers. You can look at the numbers and say, well, based off the numbers, this team made it. I mean, but if you're just saying, well, we think this team is better, that to me, that'd get kind of like, I can get dicey. But like, if you look at the paper and say, well, based off of all the numbers, we didn't make it based off the numbers. I think you could take that better than somebody saying, well, even though this team is undefeated, this team has 1 loss, we think this team is better. Like, I don't know about that, but I'm sure hopefully there's more that goes into it than that.
It doesn't sound like it. I mean, it sounds like, they want to try and make sure that they get the best teams in the tournament. So and they've had a lot of COVID issues out there, especially in 6A. So, they may pick a team that's 2-0 over a team that's, 4-2 to make the playoffs. They want a committee to make the final say of what teams are going to make the playoffs, and across all of the classifications, that, all right, in fact, they have no power rankings. All they do is have standings. And then they're going to have a committee pick the teams. So that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Well, hopefully nobody knows where those committee members live at, because it's gonna be a lot of mad people out there, boy. I just hope it is clear cut.
Sounds like they just get together in the hotel room and hey, well, I don't know, probably have to be a pretty big conference room, have to have social distancing and everything like that. But then they pick the teams and then they announce them. So kind of the old-fashioned way, you got to love that. I mean, I've been calling it WPIAL chaos, and they are going to have some very interesting decisions to make out there. But it has been beneficial for me, because now I've got a picture on the teams that a lot of District 3. the state semifinal and 5 and 6 goes through the WPIAL champ, or out
Yeah.
west there. So they start.
Right.
In fact, their season ends this week, and they start their playoffs next week. So
Right.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it
how,
definitely is.
ultimately, how there's any number of different ways that districts arrive at a champion, and ultimately we arrive at a champion in Hershey. And I think that we're fortunate that we've got a way to do that this year. Don't you think?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the kids wanted a season. We got a season. So the only thing you can do is just do the best you can, come out each week ready to play, and then let the chips fall where they may.
That's right. Let the chips fall where they may. And well, the chips fell this week here on this show. I want to thank Bill Miller and my buddy Daryl. It was a great show this week again, pal. And we'll be at it again next week. And for the final week of the regular season here on Fresh Set of Downs. For Daryl Daniel, I'm Bruce Badgley, man. Hey, we'll see you on the flip side.